Hello, dear friends. How are you? I hope you are in the best condition. Today I came back to you with a story up my sleeve that is a story and a lesson. And today, our story is a new story. Hope you enjoy it. The sea and Jack looked like the sky in front of him was overcast with clouds, flashing and thundering, warning of the arrival. Jack didn't realize what that meant as clearly as the rest of him did. Sailors understand. They know what it means for a ship to be in the middle of the sea, under a severe storm. It is those moments that they wish for a new day to dawn while they are still alive. All sailors realize this death and life are separated only by a thin line, just a small event that may lead to the sinking of this ship. As for the captain, he knows that this is the most severe moment to test the feasibility of his choices, so he is busy with his tambourine. The leadership does not go beyond ordering his crew to do what he deems appropriate, destroying as much as might extinguish fuel. Their breath was Jack, oblivious, isolated in a corner of the ship, and thinking naively they all understood. As soon as the rain started falling, he wondered to himself, what was the point of staying on the ship with all this water pouring down on them? From the crash of the waves on the hull of the ship were the sails tight. The ship is rocking, as if she would fly with the force of the wind, which pushed it. The workers were running here and there, pulling the ropes and pulling the rope. Jack. They are putting themselves in grave danger, and wonder, what if they abandoned the ship and took care of hiding from this danger without causing a single person to sink? Some of them are able to save someone who falls overboard between these waves. He was oblivious to the surprises the sea had in store for them, and all the workers were busy with what he ate. To them from the captain, who was shouting for Jack to lower the anchors, but Jack missed. He was unconscious and in shock at what he had thrown himself into. He was happy and at peace on his father's farm, eating and drinking. How is working on a ship better than working on land? These were all questions that clouded his mind. He did not feel the screams of the workers or the captain's screams, but rather he was astonished by the terror he saw. In front of him was the ship, heading into a giant vortex. Everyone turned to see the scene of two people. Their eyes surrendered. Then, in a moment, the captain tried with all his might. His strength is to push the ship away in the hope of salvation. He turned in the opposite direction to what he should have done in such circumstances, and Jack only felt his body was sliding from right to left, then to the end of the ship. He could not find anything to cling to, so he fell. The sea and the waves tossed with it, as if they were only seeking. To him, the captain was able to push the ship away from the vortex, and everyone did not even stop working. The ship became level again, and they felt that it had calmed down and kept them away from all danger. Then a captain ran. The ship took a quick census of the workers. He realized that the new sailor had disappeared, and when he asked about her, he told him, the sailors who were on board the ship said that he fell into the whirlpool after he got lost on board the ship without clinging to anything. The captain was saddened by what happened to him, despite the blame and reprimand he was preparing for him. He neglected his command when he was shouting to him to lower the messenger. This is before they reached the vortex. He thought he did not deserve to be punished, even though they were on the verge of death. They all went on their way, having lost hope of this young man's survival. This reckless Jack, who realized, while crashing between the waves, had reached the end of all his actions. He was immersed in a tape of his memories, in which he used to see himself all the time, guilty, not. He was jealous of anyone, and saw his parents crying when he found out he was drowned. But he quickly realized that it was someone telling them that his heart had finally broken for his parents. They were both his father and mother, so his eyes filled with tears as he tried to stay afloat among those waves, which was shaking, as if it was trying to lower his body to its depths, so his tears mixed with the seawater. It was salty, but it did not move a trace in it, and the water pulled it to its darkness, and he saw the last trace of it, for breath. And while he was Jack's body was suspended between the bottom and the surface, and he was certain that he was immortal, and a flash was approaching him quickly. His captor seized him while he closed his eyes in surrender, and someone was pulling him up until he reached the roof. He opened his eyes and felt an arm surrounding his body from above and pulling him as if he was swimming on the surface of the water. He could not see the body, but he felt it. With the radiant light coming from him, he was desperate to open his eyes and regain his breathing, but his body was extremely exhausted. He thought that his soul was leaving the water, but his eyes did not open, and no movement came out. His body passed for a few moments, and he did not know how tall she was. Then he opened his eyes again and saw a charming girl with hair shining with the brilliance of gold. He thought that he was imagining this matter. He closed his eyes and realized that he was on a sandy beach. While the water was still caressing his feet, he turned to this girl who she showed signs of fear, as if she was afraid that he would die. And when it became clear to her that he began to wake up, she took a breath. He sighed, and while he was immersed in his amazement with her, he was unable to say anything, but she withdrew. She gently moved her arm from beneath his neck, freeing his body to lie on the beach. Then she said to him, as if it were her in a hurry, it was his parents' prayers that gave him another chance at life, and had it not been for them, he would have died. Then she turned towards the sea and began to move away, as if she was crawling, looking towards her with effort, and he was trying to raise his head from the ground and see that her body was half human and the other half fish, the description of which resonated. In his memory, he realized that she was a mermaid, but he was unable to say anything, and it did not take long until he fainted, and his head returned to the ground, and he woke up. On the beach, after spending a long time under the sun's rays, which covered his face, he turned to land, then to the water. He was trying to comprehend what he had just remembered of the events of which he was not sure he lived yesterday, and can differentiate between the reality of his memories and what appears to him. He imagined that he remained standing there in confusion, then left after feeling the pressure that made his body tight. He moves towards the forest and quickly realizes that he is on island, inhabited only by these dense trees surrounding a high hill that I have climbed. Through time and hidden from view, he was like a fallen bird from the nest to the bottom of a tree, and his wings still do not have the strength to return him to them. So tomorrow, he searches for a corner. He comes to him for fear of being preyed upon by the predators that lurk, like those who roam the island. The little one in he felt it for a while, and found only one spring flowing at the bottom. The hill has its waters flowing across, and a small boy approached the shore, drinking water from the spring, and drank until his stomach swelled from the water. Then he lay down, reciting water. The pain followed his drinking of the water with embarrassment, and it remained in that state until it came upon him. Darkness. When he felt that his pain had eased, he stood up. His feet hurried to the top of the hill, where there was a small flat area where the stars were located. Anissa was there, the only thing that reminded him of the faraway place from which he came. He lay there until he fell into a deep sleep. As soon as the morning came, he began searching for food, but he did not find a single fruit on the trees of the forest. He wished it had fruit trees like the land, his father's farm, from which he ate, without to protect them for those who are miserable in their souls and tired of trimming their limbs. He was surprised to find wheat on the beach, and remembered that it resembled the load of bags of wheat that had been with the ship he was on before he fell into the sea. He wondered who had brought it to shore. He tried to remember Helmera from where she was yesterday, but she was not there, or it was there, but he failed to see it. He also wondered about the fate of the ship and its crew, and how sorry he was for lying to the ship's captain when he told him that he was a master of archery, the anchors, and in that moment of grief that overwhelmed him, he thought that the ship might be there. It is docked in one part of the island, and the cargo may have been dropped here, so he hastened around. On the island, he hoped to find the ship or one of its crew, but his attempts quickly failed. When he did not see anyone anywhere on the island, he waited for a long time near the 2 bags of grain, and he did not come. Someone carried one of them to the top of the hill, and there he only found a suitable spot for his maw to take on. This 1 bag was very heavy, and he felt completely exhausted when he brought it to the top of the hill, so he came down. Returning to the beach, after catching his breath and resting a little, he searched for a flat rock that he wanted to take. He started grinding the grains in it, and when he found it, he looked for another one to grind the grains with, and he was successful. That task. He took out a handful of grains and pounded them on the rock until he turned it into flour. When he finished, he realized that he needed a fire. He went looking for sticks of dry wood in it. He moved around the island and returned, his mission successful. He tried to start the fire for hours and hours. His joy was when he succeeded in igniting it, and he continued dancing with joy. He was saved from certain death. It was time. At night, he took the flour, mixed it with some water, baked it, and prepared a loaf of it that was palatable despite the fact that, because he is not related to the bread that he even knows as an onion. He finished eating his loaf and lay down next to the burning fire until morning, and when he woke up, he did a proverb. What he did yesterday, he was reassured that there was food to eat on this island, empty of all food except of the 2 bags of pills he found on the beach. He still wonders who brought him what, began to pass as he took a handful of grains every day and ground them on a rock. He kneads it, removes the fire, then prepares bread from it to satisfy his hunger. After he has passed away, on the island for a month, he felt that his exit might become impossible, as there was no sign on the horizon that gave him hope. Now, my friends here, we stop today with the hope of meeting in the next part. I wonder what events await us. So, to receive all new updates, do not forget to subscribe to the channel.